Numbers chapter 20. I hope you've had a good week. Father, as we open your word, may we remember, Lord, that it is your word. And I present myself to you, that you might fill me, Lord, and speak through me what's on your heart, what's on your mind. And I pray, Lord, that you would make it alive to us, and be spirit and life. And strengthen us, Lord, with all might by your Spirit this day. Encourage us. Fashion us. And lead us, Lord. As our shepherd, our great shepherd. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. In Exodus, or Numbers rather, chapter 20, it starts off by saying, in the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived in the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. And there Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. And they quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain, no figs, no grapevines, no pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. And Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance to the tent of meeting, and they fell face down. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. Wow. He's just experienced the death of his sister. And that happens. You know, in a time like that, we can't dictate how people are going to react to anything or how people are going to respond. And that's something to remember in our lives. Sometimes it might be a difficult day. We might get up and feel like the weight of the world is upon us today, and the first thing that we might face is challenge, difficulty, and issues in relationships with people. Or people might not be aware of what you're going through, and they might be in your face or complaining or murmuring. Anybody ever have that happen to them? I'm just curious. A few hands. The rest of you are fortunate. And the thing to remember is we can't dictate how people are going to respond, and we should not react to them. But it takes the power that only God can give by his Spirit not to do that. Right? Now, I want to look at Numbers chapter 14. Back up a few chapters here. In Numbers 14, beginning in verse 2. I want to read something. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole community said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land, only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder, and wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? They said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. So Why did I read that? That sounds like a whole lot like what I read in Numbers chapter 20, doesn't it? Well, here's the difference. In Numbers chapter 20, it's introducing us basically to the end of the wilderness journey. 38 years had passed. And 6 chapters deal with that wilderness journey. Or I should say after that wilderness journey. Six chapters dealt with it. I was right the first time. 6 chapters dealt with it. And the rest of it is going to be talking about death and what happened after that. And 38 years have gone by, and they're doing the same thing. Does our flesh ever get better? No, it doesn't. But do we stay on track more? Yeah, we do. We do stay on track more. But did they? No, they were pretty much off track the whole time. Not always, but most of the time they were off track. But us as believers, God desires us to be on track more and more, and we're in a process. We're not arrivers. And we will have those times where we get off track, and we seem like what we were like 38 years ago. But they've gone through that wilderness journey, and they've kept doing the same thing. And so, again, in verse 1 of chapter 20, it says, in the first month, that's of the 40th year, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. And then Miriam died and was buried. That's all it says about Miriam. 6 words, 1 verse. Miriam died, and they buried her. I don't know why that is. I know that she rose up against her brother. She opposed him, along with Aaron. I think she kind of drug him along, and she was judged by God. In fact, God gave her leprosy because of her sin against her brother. But he prayed for her. Again, he fell on his face and he prayed for her, and God spared her. He lifted the leprosy, and after a week he let her go back into the fellowship with the people. I don't know if that's why it was short or not, but I know that she was a godly woman, and she is the one that, as baby Noah, or baby Jonah, Moses rather, was put in the water. She watched over him, right, till Pharaoh's daughter took the baby and took care of the baby. And then she found her mother to care for Moses. And so we know that she did that. We know that she was worshiping God and took him through the Red Sea, and all the women and her were singing to the Lord and praising the Lord. But not a lot is said right here. It's kind of surprising. But then in verse 2 it says, now there was no water for the community. And there's a scarcity. And you wonder why all these scarcities show up in their lives. No water for the community and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. And they quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. They're speaking about the 250 that were burned up, the community leaders that opposed Moses. And so they're saying it would have been better off to die there. And so they're looking at life very temporal, aren't they? They don't have an eternal view of what's going on in life. And that's the challenge that we all have down here. There's times in life where we wonder, what in the world is going on? Why do I have scarcity all the time? No water, no food. I can't pay the PG&E bill. No gas in my car. All those things happen, right? I remember one time time not having any gas in my car, and I didn't have any money to buy gas. And here I am, Lord, serving you. And look at this scarcity that I have. So we got to be honest when we talk to people. Those things do happen, especially when we speak to other Christians. We do have scarcity in life. We do have pain. We do have suffering. All of that. And so did Jesus. He was called a man of sorrows. Had many sorrows. But he also experienced the joy and the power and love along with it. And sometimes people think, well, how can that be? It's because he didn't live by circumstances. He lived by the Spirit of God, by the power of God. And in the midst of difficulties and challenges in life, that's what we learn. When Jesus is all we have, we learn that he's all we need. And he gets us through it, gets us through it. And I've shared with you times where my wife and I didn't have any money, we didn't have any food. And I said, let's pray. That's all we had was Jesus. And we prayed, and somebody called and invited us to a chicken dinner. And then as we were walking out the door one day, after that chicken dinner, we needed food still. And we were walking out the door, and we opened the door, and there was a box of food. Filet mignon. Did God provide? Yeah, he did. See, the times of scarcity in our life, those are the times when God shows up and he says, here I am. And we go, we know it's God. Because we just prayed. Answers those prayers. Is it an easy time? No, it's a challenging time. We're being stretched. Our faith is growing. Our trust in him is growing. He's enlarging our heart to contain more of his love. Amen. No water for the community. What do you think? Think God's going to let it die of thirst? This is like Pete and repeat. See, this has happened before. It's like when he taps us on the shoulder and he reminds us, well, we went through this before. We did. Yeah, remember when, oh yeah, that's right. What happened then? Well, I came through. You came through, Lord. Yeah. So I'll come through this time too. Trust me. But they rose in opposition to Moses and Aaron. And they quarreled with Moses and said, if only. And we've talked about this before, the if onlys in life. Lord, if you would just take this out of my life, this thorn, this thing that keeps happening. I've been talking to you about it for, 38 years, Lord. And he might say, yeah, I know, and I wish you'd stop talking to me about it. No, I'm serious. There's times when God, I'm sure, would say to us, let's stop talking about this one, son. Let's move on. My grace is sufficient for you. Yes, I know you'd prefer something else, but my grace is sufficient for you. So, receive it as a gift from me, because I give you what you need, not always what you want. They quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. They're still seeing those brothers that fell dead before the Lord as heroes. They weren't. And God judged them. Why did you bring the Lord's community into the wilderness? You know, the question is why. Do you have any why questions for God? I think that was Joe that gave an amen. He's got some why questions, maybe. Do you know some of those why questions you'll get answers to if you want them? I don't know that we always want them. I think it's just a way of complaining. Well, why did you do this? Or here we go again. Yeah, son. Here we go again. You got it yet? trying to humble me, Lord. That's it. You got it. Humble yourself to the mighty hand of God. I will lift you up in due time. When it's due time, Lord, when you stop asking. Even in your heart. So, why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place, this horrible, terrible, stinking place that you brought us? To cause you to grow, to work in your hearts. And by the way, I was taking you into the promised land, but you didn't want to go. You know, they still could have went into the promised land in one way, spiritually. They could have begun to trust God right there in the wilderness. They could have begun to experience something besides complaining and murmuring right there in the wilderness. Because there's many people in Hebrews chapter 11 that came to God by faith in the Old Testament. Come to the mercy seat. And it's the same with us today as believers when we walk in discouragement and depression and in despair. I would say to you, you don't have to. And you would point to all your circumstances and say, yes, I do. You don't know what I'm going through, right? And you would point to all these circumstances. You'd point to all your failures. But I know someone who's greater than your circumstances and greater than your failures. And he can overcome anything. He's God Almighty, and he's your friend. Remember that. He doesn't come to condemn you. He comes to help you. You might say, well, how come he's not helping me? Start trusting him. Start thanking him. Start fleeing to his very great and precious promises when you're in the midst of it, because his grace is sufficient for you. And he'll touch you right now by his grace and by his Spirit, and he will lift you above all of that that's coming your way. He will strengthen you with all might, and he will give you wisdom that you don't have and that you need in the circumstance that you're in. Why did he bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain, no figs, no grapevines, no pomegranates. All it's got basically is sand. We're in the wilderness. And there's no water to drink. Well, you know who they do have? Is God. We got no water, we got no figs, we got no grain, we got none of that. No. All these scarcities. But what they have is God. He doesn't leave them in the daytime. He doesn't leave them in the nighttime. He doesn't leave them 1 second, not one moment. God is there for them. And the same is true with you and I. His eyes are always upon us. His thoughts are more than the grains of sand in the seashore upon each and every one of us. He knows everything that you're going through. He knows the past and he knows the future. All of that. So they were thinking about what they didn't have and they forgot what they did have. And it's the same with you and I. We have the one who owned the stars in the sky and called them each by name. We're the one, Tim was talking about how he created us out of dust and breathed into us the breath of life. We have that one with us. And when we sleep at night, he doesn't. He cares for us. And you know what? entrance to the tent of meeting, and they fell face down. Why they called him flat-nose? Because he kept falling face down. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord said to Moses, take the staff. You guys remember the staff? Exodus chapter 4. When God shows up, he wants Moses to go to Egypt and to speak to Pharaoh. And he's saying, well, I can't do that. And he says, and I want you to talk to the Israelites. And they said, well, they're not going to believe me. What am I going to tell them? And what's your name? I don't even know your name. And he's going through all of that stuff. And he says, Moses, what do you got? That's what he said. Well, what do you got? I got this staff. I'll use that. And he brings Pharaoh to his knees. So it's that staff that he's talking about. And I think that was like a security blanket for Moses. Because that's how God used him. He used that staff, right? I remember when my daughter was growing up, she had a security blanket. It was a little Molly dolly. It was a little pink doll, about like that. Everywhere she went, she needed that little Molly dolly. It just gave her some security everywhere she went. Kind of like people when they put their thumb in their mouth, I had a cousin that did that. She was like 12, 13 years old. She still had her thumb in her mouth. And some of these things are hard to get rid of. You get this like a security blanket. And so Moses, you got the staff there. Take the staff. Go ahead. And you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. This is what I want you to do. Speak to the rock before their eyes. And it will pour out water. Because they're complaining for water. He said, Moses, see that rock? Go speak to it. And I'll give water from the rock. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence just as he commanded him. And he and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? He's already in a bad spot. He's got an attitude. Rebels. I wonder if that's how God thought of these people. And God got up that morning and was listening to their complaining and his don't like God. I think that's what he wanted Moses to pass on. He liked God talking to Joe when he got up in the morning. Joe, I know what you were thinking about last night. God loves us in our worst moments. He doesn't want us to do them. Keep doing things we should. But he loves us. That's the message that he wanted to bring. Why was he giving them water? Because they were thirsty. He wanted to reveal himself to them. Look, I'm the one that can provide water out of a rock. I haven't forgotten you. I remember you guys. So, Moses said to them, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? Who's he exalting here? Himself. And then Moses raised his arm and he struck the rock. Now, see, this had happened before. Another time when they needed water and they were out of water, and God told him to take the staff and to strike the rock. But you know what? God's not a formula. It's like one time we go to God, and he does something one way, and so we figure, I got to figure it out now. I've learned his way. But he's got more than one way. He's got lots of ways. And Moses prayed to know his ways. Plural, didn't he? Well, he learned one of them. That he could strike that rock and water would come. It wasn't wasn't going to have to do it again. So he broke the type, he broke the picture that God wanted to display to the people. And besides that, he didn't tell him to strike the rock. He said, speak to the rock. Then Moses raised his arm and he struck the rock twice with his staff, and water gushed out, and the community and livestock drank. So why did God let water gush out when he did wrong? The mercy of God. Because he wanted to provide for the people, because he loved them, he cared for them. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. Whoa. He'd walked, he's starting his 40th year of walking with the Lord. And he just made this one little mistake here. And God's going to say, you can't go into the promised land. So, sorry guys. You don't make it. You're not going to go into the promised land. Was God too harsh with him? Haven't we ever thought that sometime? Why didn't he let Moses go into the promised land? Look at Matthew 17. Matthew 17, verse 1. It says, after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And then he led them up a high mountain by themselves. And there he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. And just then, there appeared before them, my gosh, Moses and Elijah, talking with Jesus. You know where they're at? They're in the promised land. Moses made it. I'll be. He did make it to the promised land. And he had to stay over in paradise before he got there. By that meanie God. So was God merciful? Gracious? See, to be absent from the body for Moses was to be present with the Lord. So back Numbers 20 again. Verse 13. These were the waters of Meribah, which means quarrel, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he was proved holy among them. Now, God puts a big emphasis here on holiness. And he was saying to Moses and Aaron, guys, let me read it again. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring the community into the land I give them. Because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy. And so in their disobedience, they were not honoring him as holy. He's a holy God, and we're not. When we live by faith, we honor him as holy, because we live in holiness. However, when we live in unbelief, we don't honor him as holy. That makes me want to live by faith, to live in faith, to be filled with his Spirit. And he says, continually be desires every moment of every life, bringing every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Now, do we do that? No, there's nobody on the face of the earth that's done that except Jesus Christ. And he calls us to put on the mind of Christ. I'm thankful for his mercy. I'm thankful for his grace. I'm thankful for his forgiveness. I'm thankful for his love and all of that. And I want to present my body to him as a living sacrifice, because that's the only acceptable sacrifice, is a contrite heart presenting their bodies to him. And so whatever in my life that is out of step with God, I want it out of my life. And I want to follow him. And anybody that has that desire will never be disappointed in what he does with our life. And you know, I think of David, that was called a man after God's own heart. He pursued the heart of God. And Moses was the man of God, wasn't he? And they both failed. They both did things that they wish they hadn't. But God still looked at their hearts, and he knew that they wanted him. And they didn't quit. They kept getting up. And they kept coming back to him. And that's what he says to each of us. Come to me. All of you that are weary and burdened and heavy laden, you've been beaten down by life, you're discouraged, disheartened. He says, come to me. Come to me and partake. Partake with him. Father, I just think of how many times, Lord, you have extended mercy and forgiveness and grace. And Lord, your long-suffering towards us is amazing. And your mercy toward us, Lord, you don't give us what we deserve. You give us what we don't deserve. And I'm so thankful. And Lord, because of your love for us, you want us, Lord, to just trust you and to take your hand and walk with you day by day and never give in, never give up, never give out, but be strengthened by you every single day. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for your work that you will finish. We're confident of that. That good work that you've begun, you will complete it. So those hearts that are in here this morning, Lord, that are just, their heart's been in their feet. They just feel like they've been beat up by life. They've made mistakes. They feel condemned. I pray that you lift them out of it. I pray that they would begin to trust you again and hold on to your very great and precious promises, to hold on to you, but to realize, Lord, that you're holding on to them. And I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Blessings on you guys.